Little bit of grading done. Okay. If everything's working, come on. You guys have been doing so much this semester. I'm so glad that you're learning so much. My daughter is always a real pain about school, and she said one time, I don't want to go to class and waste my money. If I'm going to go, I want to learn some stuff. So that's important to me, and I want to make sure that nobody's wasted any money. You guys are learning a ton, and you are. Okay, last time we were working on that audio CD form, and we're going to keep working on it. Now, I posted it to Canvas in the announcements again, so you're welcome to just grab the zip file even if you don't need it, just as kind of like a checkpoint spot, just if you wanted to keep it. And so I'll keep some of those zip files just as our different points in time. So what we're going to do with our project today, first of all, we're going to do a little bit of cleaning up, organizing some stuff, making sure everything works the way we want. And then we're going to implement that ListBox so that we can list all of the audio CDs that we have. And we want to make sure we have everything cleaned up and methods created in the best way for us before we do that. And then it'll be real easy for us to put that in, and we won't have any trouble. Anytime something is seeming really hard, especially when you're working with a language like C# that's just built to be organized, if something is just feeling like you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, step back a little bit and take a look at it, because you're probably approaching something in a little bit different of a way than maybe the best way. So you can step back and think about it and say, oh, maybe I should do this just a little bit different. So I'm going to open our project there that I posted. We'll get that ListBox put in today, and then for our sorry. Our new stuff this week, we'll be looking at processing files. So after all of the hard things that you guys have been doing, that should be pretty easy. It's a lot like working with arrays. Now, whenever I open my project, I'm not seeing anything. So remember, I can just double click on my form. Hopefully it will load. And I will see something. After you start working with these forms-based projects, it doesn't take very long for you to expect to see that form when you open up a project, does it? You get used to it really fast. You like that. We like visual feedback, and so it's very nice when we have that. So where we are with our application, we had it set where if we run it, it creates a default audio media and displays that for us on the screen. We could click reset to start with a blank screen. Oops, I sent you a bug, didn't I? Please insert correct value for number of tracks. That's one of those edit things we were working on last time. So we'll have to take a look at that. I was trying to get those in because you guys got them in and I didn't. So you might have some better code that we can fix that with. Now, when I'm going to create this new CD instance, I can type in the information that I want. Can't type this morning. 245 tracks. It's a really long album. Yeah, 3 of them. We'll make it $43. And then we displayed the information about that audio media using our toString from our audio CD class. I'm going to stop running. Remember, at the end of class last time, we looked at our form properties, and on our form, we found the accept button property, and we were able to set which button executes automatically when the user presses enter. And then we found the cancel button property to specify which button executes automatically when the user presses escape. So we can set those up. I just messed mine up. There it is. So those are important things that we can do on our form. So I'd like to clean up our code. We can always just double click on a control on our form and bring up our code. You know that you want to focus on those controls that already have event procedures, right? And then you'll go right to that spot. You can right click anywhere and choose view code. You could press F7 anytime too to bring up that code window. So any of those things, whatever works for you. Now I'd like to, first of all, like I said, clean up a little bit. Looking at our example here, I didn't do any commenting or anything as we were creating it because we were just busy coding away. So I'll do that for our class here. Let's say this app is audio CD maintenance. You are the developer. We've been working a lot on you customizing things. And I know that date is just today, but it's fine. In 10 years, it won't matter. Now, our purpose is to allow maintenance, add, update, and delete of audio. I'm going to try to get lined up here, instances. And we could call those audio inventory. So whatever was best for us in our company. Bless you. Now for our form, we didn't really create this, but let's go ahead and document it anyways. I'm going to do the 3 slashes so that it creates the summary comment for me. And I'm going to say, this is the form 1 constructor. And it's really the default no arg constructor, isn't it? Because it doesn't have any arguments. So even though we didn't create that constructor, it was created for our form. Now I know again all of the comments can get it kind of long, so remember that you can collapse them down if that's something that will help with it not being quite so long and drawn out. Now for our OK button click, I want to put in a comment, and again if I use the 3 slashes it automatically documents the parameters that we require. And so for our OK button click, let's say this is our OK button event procedure. It processes the form data. We're going to change it up a little bit, so I don't want to say too much about what it does. But it takes the data from our form and it does some things with it. Now while we're commenting, let's get our reset button. Resets all of the form data. We also have a form load. Some people like the form load to come first. That's fine. If you rearrange things, just make sure you don't, lose curly braces. But here for our form load, event procedure to prepare the form for display. And then we have all of our different ones for different editing. So those should be pretty quick. Let's do, I've got this txt num tracks, validate the number of tracks as numeric. I think this quantity one is the one that was giving me a bad message as we were loading up, so it may be buggy, we'll see. But we'll say validate the quantity as numeric. And finally, our last one, validate the cost. And for mine, we're going to say the decimal is allowed. You saw that we had to do some special stuff to make that happen. We had to get some background music in here or something. We need a DJ. It's too quiet. Take it. Okay, I'm going to save after all those beautiful comments. Now, what I want to do is I've noticed, as we look at all this code here, that it seems like this area in our form load where we take all of the CD instance variables and put them into our text boxes, it seems like that's something that's common, that we would have to do that a lot. So let's move this code into a new method. Let's create a method to hold that. So I'm going to create this method right below where that code is right now. It's going to be, I guess, private, because I'm only going to call it from within this class. It's going to be void because it's not going to return any data, but it's going to load up these text boxes. So let's call it load. It really just stopped and waited there for me for a second. Load form data. And in our load form data method, I just want all of these lines of code where we're setting our text box equal to our CD instance data. So I'm going to cut that, and it's just those, like 6 of them. And I'm going to paste them into that new method we just created. Now in our form load, instead of not doing anything, let's call that new method load form data. And we should be able to run this without seeing any difference. We just now have a new method that's taking care of that in case we need to do it from some other places, hint, 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 which we probably will. Now let's document that. Load the text boxes on the form. Okay, beautiful. So now we need to do the same thing here. Right here in our button reset _ click, we have a bunch of code that clears out all of the fields on our form. So right under that, create a method called clear form data and move all of those lines of code into that. Now, when we're doing our clear form data, we don't necessarily want to do that text id.focus command because that might not be where we want to put the focus every time that we want to clear all these data fields. So I really only want to move the 6 lines of code that are resetting the text boxes. So I'm going to cut those and paste them in this new method, and then I'm going to call my new method from my reset button. Now I'm getting a little bit more organized here, especially because, like I said, we're going to be needing to do these things from other places, other event procedures, as we add code to make our ListBox work. So we're just going to get it organized first. One more then. Here in our OK button, we have a chunk where we set up our CD, our audio instance. So let's create a method called load class data for that one. Or load audio data, if you like that better.
Should we do public instead of private?
Oop, don't do private, sorry. I always, bad habit of doing public, we don't want to do that. All right, so now if we run our application, which we want to do, we want to make sure that we haven't broken anything. We've just been documenting and reorganizing a little bit so that we have some nice happy methods to handle all of our text box fields. I'm going to run this. My original artist stuff shows up okay. I'll click my reset, get my number of tracks error that I'm going to work on here in a minute. Okay, so everything seems to still be working okay. If I try to type any invalid data, I get my error message. Now, as we created code to validate our data, we used message boxes as pop-ups to say there was something wrong, and that's a great way of handling it. But some people find that intrusive. If you notice, like when you guys are watching the Zoom session, you hear mine go ding when that pops up. And so there are some users that despise message boxes. I don't know how else to put it. So let's create a nice status message down at the bottom of our form. And we can use that and be a little bit less interruptive. So I want to go to our form. And in design mode, let's add this down to the very bottom. And I'm going to make it a text box. Remember, we like that we can control their size a little bit more. And my text box, I'm going to make my back color and stuff match, because I want it to blend in a little bit. That wasn't it. And then I'll make my four color something that is obnoxious. We could use red or something like that if we wanted to, since we're going to maybe be displaying errors down here. Let's try it and see if it's too disruptive or if we think it would be too hard to see. All right, let's name this then TXT status. And this will be like our status bar. Now, a couple of other properties that we want to change. We want to change our enabled property to false because we don't want anybody to type anything in this text box. We want to change our read-only to true. Those kind of help each other out a little bit. And we'll make our tab stop a false. We don't even want that tab key to stop there. Okay, and we'll get everything set to use that. Now, while we're here with our form, let's go ahead and add our list box, because that's really what we were wanting to do today. And we'll have a lot going on with that. I'm going to select with my rubber band selection all these other controls on my form. And I want to move everything over to the side. Come on. So that it'll kind of be like this half of my form is the data entry update kind of stuff. And then the other half of my form will be the list box. I'm going to find my list box control. Notice there is a list view. It looks really different, so don't use it because it won't work the same. It's one that you want to experiment with for sure, but it definitely doesn't work the same as the list box. So let's grab a list box, and I want to set it up over here on this side. I'll even it out just a little bit. Now in our list box for right now, I want to name it something a little different. We'll name it LSTBX audio. Right now, we're only going to let people select one item from our list box at a time. So I think that should be the only thing that we would need to change. We could change it to be sorted. Do you want our CDs to be sorted? Let's do it. Let's see if that causes us any trouble. Make it true.
What was the other thing?
Just the name.
Oh, yeah.
That should be all. Okay, let's run it. We shouldn't see anything going on in that list box, but it also shouldn't cause us any trouble. Make sure everything is all still looking good. All right. So, yes, sir?
How would you make the text box transparent?
The what?
The text box.
I just made the back color the same as my form back color. And then the other properties we set on that one where we set read only to true and enable to false. Some of those have an impact on the way it looks too. Okay, so in our form load, let's just go ahead and add that very first default audio item. Yes, sir?
I named my list when I'm in the program, the LSTBX audio doesn't go away.
That's all right. We'll get rid of that here as we go. So you're okay. Now, what we want to do is let's find your form load. So in your form load so far, you should have just these couple lines of code, creating the CD instance, and then this load form data. Now, after we load our form data, which is all of our text boxes, we're going to add this CD instance to our list box. So we want to use our list box audio. And whenever we're working with a list box, remember, it's the items property that's our collection, our array. So we want to add to those items. And what we want to add is our CD instance. So now if you run it, we see some stuff. It's kind of ugly though, isn't it? We're going to have to clean up a little bit. Is everybody seeing some things? Seeing some stuff. Okay, let's go clean that up. In our audio CD class, we need to fix our toString. Let's go find it. So I'm in my audio CD class. For our toString, we have all of this heading stuff where we're outputting all of these different things about the audio track. It's almost a little bit too much. We have some choices here. We could either update the toString method and get rid of this heading stuff, or we could create a whole nother method that returns a different string that we use for our ListBox. What would you like to do? New method? I hear it. Let's do it. Create it. Public string. And let's call this one, this is going to be kind of like our simple string instead of our toString. So notice when I've created this method, I've said I'm going to return a string, just the same as I did in our toString, but I don't have the override keyword because we're not overriding a system method. Now in our simple string, let's return all of these data items. I'll use our interpolated string, and I think I want to put ID and then a space and then, oops, try to get curly braces here, name and a space and artist, and we'll see how that looks in our ListBox. I'll go ahead and format our cost as currency. And let's just try that. So we're doing a new method here, and we're just going to output all of this information in a row. Now, in order for us to use that, let's go back to our form code. And here where we load up our CD instance, right now it's doing the default toString, but let's use our new simple string method. Let's see how that looks. So now we've got FF is the ID, default CD, name, default artist, 99 and 0000. Do you want tabs in between them instead of spaces? Let's try it. We can do some experimenting. Do I? Huh?
Are you able to put them on a new line so you can do better?
Well, when we're working with a ListBox, it kind of implies one line for that stuff. Try a tab. So if we wanted to get really creative, we would be able to just create columns in our ListBox, and then we could have everything completely controlled the way we want it. It takes us a lot of work to do that we don't have time for, but we could definitely try that. So my tabs look a little bit kind of gross too. Too far apart. So I think I'll just do a little bit more spaces. Now, could set those up in columns and everything would be fine. So we do have lots of options. Not too bad. It's getting there. We use those columnar size parameters and lots of different things to get it set up just the way we want it. But that looks pretty good. So we've seen that we can just go back to our audio CD class and create that method, and then we can output things exactly the way we want. So let's go back and take a look at our form code. Because what if somebody adds a new CD? Let's find your OK button code. Where's my OK button? There it is. And now instead of doing a message box to display that CD data, let's add it to our list box. And we'll use our simple string method. Now we should just be able to add instances to our list. So this is what we're hoping for, is we want to have all of our methods be really basic and simple and just have a few lines of code to accomplish their tasks, because we've separated things out enough that each method is really simple. So I'm going to try to run it. Now I'm getting my default here, so I'm going to reset, get my weird message. I'll do my Beatles, really lot of track. There's one. Okay, so I want to reset again. We have a lot of Green Day. And they're sorting. So notice how they're sorting kind of like by what? Is it the whole thing?
ID.
They are sorting by something. Let's try. I'll make 78. Sorting by some different things. Now we have our reset button, and it clears out all of our text boxes, but it doesn't clear out our list box. So notice that if there's a spot at some point where you need to clear out the list box, of course you would do listbox.items.clear and get rid of everything. But right now we don't need to do that. But what we do need to do is offer some sort of update. So what if we said that if somebody clicks on an audio item, we want that to show over here in our text boxes. So let's try that. In order to do that, we want to add an event procedure to our list box for that selected index changed. So I'm going to double click on the list box. And now if somebody clicks on it, the controlling variable that we're going to be looking at here is the index. Which index value is the one that they clicked on? Starting at 0, just like any other array, what index item did they click on? And so it would be nice for us to have some sort of class level variable to keep track of, you know, which one they clicked on. We'll do that here in a minute. But for now, we know that they picked a certain item. So let's see if we can get that item out of the list box and make it into our CD instance. So if I'm looking at our list box items, it's going to be the selected index. Let's see, items dot. Let's see, if we do selected item, let's try it. So what kind of errors are you getting? Take a look at those.
There is selected index as well.
Yeah. If I try to get that item, what am I getting? Cannot implicitly convert type object to audio CD. Can I cast it and say, hey, thing coming out of this list box, you don't know it, but when you went in there, you were actually an audio CD. Whoops. Sorry, hang on. I changed it without meaning to. All of the help here is helping me too much. I had a little too much in telehelp. Okay, so let's see what that does. We're saying, take this item that they clicked on in the list and turn it back into an audio CD, because that's really what it was, and then load it into our CD instance. Now, if everything is kosher with that, we should be able to call our new method that loads up our text boxes. So load form data. And that should be able to pull all of the data out of that audio CD instance and put it into our text boxes. And then I'll go ahead and set the focus on our text ID. Okay, so this is our big test area. Let's see if this will do anything for us. I'm going to reset and type another one. Okay, and then I'm going to reset. And I think I'll click on my default CD. Oh, and it crashed. What's it say?
System.invalid cast exception.
Unable to cast. So we might have to fight with this a little bit. Let's see what we've got. It's saying that, I don't know what you're talking about here. This was a string, not actually an audio CD. So I wonder if it's because we use that other toString method. Let's check. So, yes, sir?
I'm sorry, I was just scripting.
Oh, you're fine. Before we change anything else, let's test that. So up here in our OK button, where we add using our simple string method, let's delete that so that we add using our toString, so that we're not specifying that method name is what I want there. Now I'm going to find the other spot in our load form, or form1.load, and do the same thing. Now, does that impact it?
Where was the other one?
Form load in your OK button. Huh. So it seems to work now, huh? Does yours work?
Sorry, can you show that?
Do it?
Can you show me the code here?
Sure. Let me.
Now mine doesn't add to the list anymore.
It doesn't add to the list. Okay, hang on. Make sure that in your form load and in your OK button, this should be the code you should have.
Yes.
So notice I was messing with you. I was like, It doesn't matter if we use the toString, we'll just create this other method. It does matter, doesn't it? Because it went from not knowing what a CD instance is because we just added that output from that method to now within our list box, it's basically saving that entire object. So we can get back to that entire object instead of just that output from that simple string method that we were loading to it before. Does that make sense? So by being able to eliminate a method name here when we load it to our list box, we're saving that entire object. And we can get back to everything about it.
So that same code in the OK button.
Yep, that same code in the OK button. Now, does that work? Is it making sense? Because it's a pretty advanced concept.
Yep.
And a lot of times, we could have really easily gotten sidetracked there and said, oh, no, this doesn't work. This list box won't hold my whole object. I'm going to need a whole nother array to hold all of these objects, and I'll keep that lined up with my list box array. And you'll see that. You'll see people's code that is that way, and that's because they're not trying to load up the entire class instance.
So can you go to selected database change?
Yeah, let me find that one. It's down at the very bottom.
So I'm having trouble and I'm not sure why, because I have the exact same thing.
Do you want to project? Let me know if you guys can't find it, and we'll all do some troubleshooting. Everybody else is okay? Now, I want you guys to really think about that one. It's pretty deep. You might have to put on your aluminum foil thinking cap. That's okay. Get it out. Do whatever you have to do, because it's a really, really important concept, really advanced. So let's use our status message then. Did you find it? Yeah. Okay. Everybody good? All right. If we're all okay, then let's save. We've got a couple of things to debug and a couple of other things that we want to fix. First of all, I'm going to start up at the top of our code. So if yours isn't in the same order as mine, that's okay, but you might have to move around a little bit. Whenever somebody clicks our OK button and we add that CD instance, I'd like to update that message, text status. And we'll make it say item added. Now in our load class data, we don't need to do anything with it. In our reset button, it would be nice if we said something. So let's make it say, ready to add item. Because that's kind of what is going on with our reset button. Now in our form load, let's set txt status to say initial data loaded. Okay, now our error messages. We need to fix those. So instead of having messagebox.show, let's change that to say txt status.
I don't have that method.
Do you have a different method that you're using to validate that?
No, if you remember
Number
we did
tracks.
recording, we did work.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
I'm sorry.
It's no problem. If you have it, make it, update that status bar instead. Now, if you look at that numtracks one that I have up, notice that it just does a simple try parse like you guys have been doing in your console commands, and that works fine. It checks it. If there's a problem, it clears it and gives them an error message. So that try parse works great. The next one uses the key press. So we don't need an error message coming out of it because it just simply won't let them type anything that's bad. And then the last one is the cost. Again, I'll do the same thing and just set that status. Now, our very last one down here at the bottom, at least at the bottom of mine, if we are displaying one of the items, let's update that text status. And we'll say like item data displayed. Okay, now it should work everywhere we go. We should get everything that we want. So this application is pretty good. It's pretty thorough for you guys. It's got just about everything that you would need for a pretty full-fledged application. I'm gonna click reset. Oh, I'm checking my message down here. I see initial data loaded. I'm gonna click reset. It says ready to add item. I could type some things here. And then it should say item added. That looks good. If I click on one, I should get item data displayed. Now, of course, I'm getting a lot of junk in my list box because we had to switch back to using that two-string method. So it's a little bit clunky. I need to work on that and get it fixed up, right? We have kind of a mess there. But everything else seems to be looking pretty good. Quick reset. I'm not getting that unusual message anymore. Everybody's working okay? That look good? Should be a really good example for you. Now this will be a good example for most of the way of what you're going to need for your final. So it'll be becoming available soon, and that's what we'll be focusing on here pretty quick. I guess we'll be ready to think about that. So this one is looking really good. I'd like to save everything. Now, what would we like to do if somebody updates the data? In our, the way our application works right now, when somebody clicks the OK button, we add. But what if they had just clicked on an item over here in the list box and it was displaying in our text area and they changed it and clicked the OK button? In that case, we would need to update that instance that was selected. So we need to somehow know whether this is a new item or whether this is an item that's being updated. So let's see what we could do about taking care of that. In our code, we want to keep track of what index is currently selected in our list. And that'll be a way that we'll be able to keep track of that. We'll have to decide where and when, but for sure that will be a field that we could use. So I'm going to add that to our instance, our class fields. This will just be an integer, and we'll call it selected index. Now when we're working with the selected index of a list box, if nothing is selected, Visual Studio will set that selected index to -1. So that would probably be a better initial value for us than 0. Use Visual Studio default of -1. That means we have nothing selected. So in our reset button, whenever somebody clicks button reset, let's make sure and set that new variable back to -1. Because we just clicked reset, we've got that message displaying ready to add. So we want to make sure that we set our selected index to -1. Nothing is selected. Now we want to do the opposite if they actually click on an item. So down in our very, very bottom, sorry, we'll scroll around just a little bit here. Down at the very bottom in our selected index changed, we're going to get that selected index should be now our list box selected index. So cool. We created this new class field, and now we're maintaining it. We are setting it to -1 if somebody clicks the reset button, and we're setting it to the item they selected from the list box if they didn't click the reset button. So now let's fix our OK button to take care of those things. I'm going to find the OK button code. Bless you. So the first thing we do in our OK button code is we say we're going to create a new instance of an audio CD, and we say that we want to load up our class data, meaning copy all of our data from our text boxes into that CD instance. That looks good whether we're doing an add or an update. But now we need to do an if statement. If our selected index is -1, we are adding. So in our add, we're going to do these two things. Now, if we're not adding, we must be updating. So we're going to say that we want to look at our list box. Now, let's go to Google, and I want you guys to see what you can find about updating items in a list box on a form. So C# list box update item. See what you can find. Tell me what would be a good thing for us to try. None of those look like ours. Kind of messy. Are you seeing a lot of messy stuff? Not seeing much good stuff. We're going to find it, don't worry. There's not very much good stuff. Let's see what we can figure out. You right? Refresh item.
Or refresh the item in specific index.
Have you tried it?
No, I just found it.
Oh, okay. See what it does, and we'll try it with you.
On the Microsoft forms, it says we can use like finding source.
Uh-huh. Yeah. We don't have ours that way. So we would use that if we were doing a database.
Now every time I click OK, it adds 2 of whatever I typed in.
Oh, there you go. Got some stuff working.
No, I mean like when I tried that code you put it.
see if this will work.
It still just adds 2 for me.
You got it called twice somewhere. Okay, guys, this works. I'm going to put it up here on the screen so you can see it. We'll see what's going on with Edward. So here's what I've ended up with, and I'm going to let you battle it and see if it works. Test it out. I think we have places where we can still break this pretty easily, but in our if statement, we're saying if it's -1, it's an add. Otherwise, we're going to make sure that we have that current instance in our audio CD, and we're going to update that selected items list based on that current index with that CD instance, and then say that that item was updated. I just don't know if we actually need that right there where we create that new instance. So do some testing, see what you can figure out and what would work better.
So you know, I reset. Let's see it add twice. Okay.
Now think about it. Lots of different methods that people will use for things like this. We used the selected index to decide, you know, have they clicked on something or not. Some people will change the label in the OK button to say update or something like that so they know. Yes, sir?
It still just adds a new one instead of updating the slide.
So check your code here. Make sure you got this in your OK button that you were fighting with it. See what you got. Does it work? Does it seem to be working?
It doesn't
Yes.
update, it just adds a new one.
Mine just like when I hit enter, click the OK button, like just go back to whatever it was before.
So is nothing updating?
I mean, it'll show the item updated,
Uh-huh.
but nothing updated.
Let's see it. Can you share it? Because we could definitely have some debugging to do. Okay, so show us what it does. So it looks nice, and we're putting in a new one. Okay. Okay, so let's try some things. So first of all, is everybody's do about the same? In our else clause, can we comment out that first line of code where we create the CD instance? Because I'm afraid we're wiping out what the users typed. So the first line in your else clause, comment that out, but we might not execute properly without that. So let's try. Can we run it without that, or are we not having a good instance of our CD?
Mine's still just adding ones.
It's what?
When I am trying to update one, it just adds a new one instead of
Still
updating.
adding a new one, huh? We'll check. Go.
Yeah, now I'm trying to remember.
Okay, so you're just getting a new one. That makes sense. So let's take a couple of other changes here. While you're looking at Braden's, let's go to your form load. And in your form load, we're actually creating an instance of a CD. So we need to change and set our selected index to 0 in the form load. I still want it set as -1 when it's initialized, but let's try making it 0
Where?
in our form load. So find your form load, and we want that selected index to be equal to 0.
Is that it? You want me to try on it?
When we add one, we need to set it to something. So after you add, right below there in your submit button,
Now it's not even adding, it just doesn't do anything.
good, we can break it all the way. In your add, make sure that, let's update that selected index. So in the if statement, after we do an add, so we want it to be after that line of code, before, not before it, because we have to actually add to that list box to update it. So then let's set our selected index equal to our list box audio dot selected index, and see if we get an update there from our add. Okay, now let's see if yours is doing the same thing as his, Edward, and then we'll know what we've got a big mess everywhere. Usually it's darkest before dawn, right? That's right before you've got it all fixed.
Nope. Still not working.
Okay, it crashed. So now we've got to go back to our OK button. Let me get back with you. I'm going to take back over for him. Let's fix everybody. Now, it can get messy. That'd be tough. All right, let me get that in. What did we do? In our form load, we set our selected index equal to 0.
I set my selected index to 0 with load form data. That's the way.
Oh yeah, don't set it in your load form data. Set it in your form load. So many places. Because in our load form data, we want to be able to use that method from other areas. So we don't want to affect our selected index there. Okay, so we updated it to 0 in our form load. And then I'm going to find our OK button. And in our OK button, right after we add the item to our list box, we can update our selected index. Now let's see how we're doing. I'm going to run. Notice how important it was for our placement for that. And click reset.
Now it's not even adding.
Okay, I got one added. Now, my changes didn't come across. Let's fix Edward and see why. Stuff everywhere. Okay, so we have a couple of things that could be our problem. First of all, right here, if I look at our OK button, we're saying create a new blank audio CD, copy all the data from the text fields into it. Then if we're doing an update, we're saying create a new audio CD based on the one in the list box and update it. Well, we just wiped out those changes from the text box. So we're going to move that.
It adds again, but it won't update.
Oh, okay, well, we'll fix, yeah. So let's change this. Edward, come with us. Find your OK button here. And in your OK button where we're doing this load class data, I want to copy that. Sorry. I'm like, where am I? Am I in the right place? Right there. And then right after that one. So delete it up here outside of the if statement. And just for clarity, let's just go ahead and move this line of code into the if statement also. Sorry. I'm just going to cut it and move it, and then that way we're doing everything we need to do. for each side of our if statement. We're going to create a blank one. If it's an add, put the text box data into it and then add it to our list box. If it's an update, we're going to create it from the list box, take the data in the text box the users have updated, and update it. Now, does it work? Missing a closing curly brace, it says. So when I was messing with the code here, I was worried about duplication, and in the end it was making it a little more complicated because it's actually a lot simpler if we just duplicated it within the if statements. Okay, so can I update? He can't. I'm going to change my CD name. It crashed. So let's look at our OK button. I guess that I'll just put these 2 lines of code back outside of my if statement because it was happy with that. And let me see if that takes care of it, because I don't really want to debug this right at this point. I would like it to work for us enough. Well, we're going to have to do some debugging. Don't do any updating right now unless you're ready to do some debugging. So I'll leave that for you for Wednesday. See what you can figure out, because we've got all these great methods and all this stuff going in all these directions, and it's just gone crazy. So let's save it. Give you guys an opportunity to do some troubleshooting and see what you can do. Now, I wouldn't want you to spend a huge amount of time, but do spend 30 minutes or so trying to figure out what's wrong with it so that we can look at it next time, and it'll have more meaning for you. Now, let's save it and create a new project. I'm going to open a whole new instance of Visual Studio. Because this one is getting a little bit busy, and I want you to be able to focus on what we're going to look at. So let's create a brand new project. And we want this to be a Forms app. And let's call it Chapter 10 Menu. When we're working with Windows applications, we know that the menu bar is something that's really important. And so far, we've been working with forms that included text boxes and things like that. But let's add a menu bar. It's a different kind of control, so I want you to see how it works. if you look over at your toolbox, you'll see it's not one of your common controls. It actually kind of has its own category, doesn't it? Menus and toolbars. Let's find the menu strip. That's the one we want. When you put a menu strip on your form, by default, it goes up to the top. And we have this new area of Visual Studio that shows up down here. And this is the component tray. So when we added this menu to our form, the actual control shows up in the component tray down here. If you click on it in the component tray, you'll see your properties for that menu strip. We don't usually rename menu strips too often. We usually only have one, so it's not something that commonly gets renamed. But we might rename all of the items on the menu. So let's think about a Windows menu. Usually the first thing is the File menu. So let's put that in ours. If you click there where it says Type Here, you can type the word File, and that will become your File menu. Now, one thing about Windows is there's this magic key on the keyboard that activates your menu. What key is that?
The one that looks like the Microsoft logo.
No, it does the Start menu.
Oh.
How do I get my menu bar activated? Alt. And you can tell because when you press Alt, you get those little lines under certain key letters. So for the File menu, that important key is F, right? So I could type Alt and then F would drop down the File menu. And then if I typed N, that would bring up the New option. So I can use the keyboard instead of my mouse. So for us to emulate that underline character in our menu, we need to put an underscore, whoops, it went crazy on me, that underneath before the letter that we want to have the underline. I said an underscore. I should have said an ampersand, an ampersand before that letter. So amper file, and that'll give me the underline under the F letter. Now for our menu, let's make it only have a file exit. And whenever we're looking at an exit, it's usually the X that has the underline. So I'm going to put the ampersand before the X. Now another place that we always have file stuff is under the Help menu. The Help menu usually is H. So I'm going to make that be our next one. So amper help. And then I want to help about. And help about usually is the A. So let's set that up. Now in my form, I'll change my text to say menu form. And let's just make our menu do a few little things. We don't have a lot going on here. First of all, let's run it so you can see what the menu looks like. So from our basic development there, we have file exit and help about. Now if you press the Alt key, you should see the underscores show up with the letters where we put the ampersands. So we've got everything all fixed there. Our menu's working. Now if I want to name these, I'm going to click on my file and I would name this MNU file. Bless you. For menu. And then MNU exit. We don't have a very big menu. MNU help, and MNU about. Now that I've got them named, I can add some code. So let's do our file exit first. Someone mentioned the other day we hadn't actually done any code to close out of a Windows form. So now we will. I'm going to double click on my exit menu, just like any of my other Windows controls. I see I got one in here by accident I'll get rid of. That'll give me an error, but that's all right. Now for my menu exit, I want to use the application class because if you remember in the program.cs file, it's the application.run that they use to run our form. So we want to use the same application class, and we have an exit option. There's thread exit, application exit. So we probably, looking, it says exit informs all message pumps they must terminate, closes all application windows. That sounds good. So we'll use that one for our menu exit. Now, the other thing that we want to create is for our, oops, I told you I was going to have that error. Let me fix it. Double clicked on something.
What did you do?
Oh, huh?
No.
You got it. Now for help about, I want an about screen to display that's going to give me all sorts of wonderful information. So let's add a new form to display that information. So for your project here, right click to add. And we can choose new item, but we have Windows form as an option. So we want to add a new Windows form. And I'm going to name this form about. I want to go find a picture for my about display. And if you remember, I like that used record store in New Orleans. Made me think they needed all this stuff. So I'll go find a picture of them and they'll be happy because I'll be giving them free advertising. Not the best, but I'll save it. It works. Now I've got a picture. Let you find one. Last time we used the picture box control to update our resource file with our picture. We could do that a little different way. We could look at our project properties. We right click on our project and choose properties. And then from our properties, we should be able to look at our resources. And I could add a resource here. I think I'll add an image. I should just be able to go to my pictures folder and drag it in there. So through my project properties, I can get to that resource editor and I can add resources like those pictures. I could add other things if I wanted to as resources also.
Can you add like audio files?
So there are all of those different kinds of things. If you do this drop down up here, there's audio. So you could add other things.
Thank you.
Now I want to put that on my form. So this is my form about that I wanted to add that to. So I'll put a picture box control on there and add my picture.
How do you add a picture?
Use the picture box control. And then when you get the picture box control in, you can use this quick task item to choose your image. Now I want to add some text, but I'm going to go ahead and put it, I think, as a text box because I don't want it to be competing with this picture. So my text box, I'm going to name it TXT about. I'll just name everything that. And I want to make it multi-line. And then in the text property, if you click the drop-down arrow, you can enter multi-line text and press enter to begin a new line. So I'm going to put something in here about, let's see, it's going to be the audio media inventory management system version 1.0. And whatever you want in your help about. So when somebody double clicks or clicks on my help about menu item, I want this form to display. So I'm going to go back to my original form and double click that help about. And I want to create a new instance of my form about. And then I want to show it. Now, when I show a form, I could use the show method, which would mean this behind the scenes form, this parent form, would still be active and I could still interact with it. Or I could use the show dialogue, where it would kind of freeze them. So I'm going to use show dialogue. You find it?
Oh, I think I got it. Okay.
So now these two forms aren't going to talk to each other at all. There's nothing going on back and forth. This one's just going to show that other one. And then when somebody closes that other one, it'll be done. There it is. Now, if you find a GIF or GIF, you should be able to make it move on your form. Let's find one. Copyright. I'm just going to try it. Now, because I've got this new resource that I want to add, again, I can just go to my project properties. Right click on my project and do properties, or choose my project menu and choose Chapter 10 menu properties. Now my resources folder is showing, and I can just drag and drop. If I go to my form about, I should just be able to click on my picture and change the image to my GIF. And then I should have motion. So super easy to change what picture you're looking at. Just you kind of have to go through those steps to get it prepared to look at and ready to go. So, okay, so debugging to do for next time. Why are we having issues when we try to update? See what you can find. We've got our menu system here ready to go as an example. Next time we'll do our debugging and then look at file processing. Try to get everything all ready for your final, and then you'll have the last few weeks to work on it.
Can you go back to the Form 1?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it didn't end up with very much code. Any questions? Is it working okay? Let's got it.
Did you also put it here on the about page?
Yep. So true. Have we done this one? You guys done this? I don't know if
So
you've
you
done
can
this.
just put menus, like, basically.
Yeah, you can do you
what's the
can
optimal amount of menus?
12 and a half.
kind of like Windows. Can you Kahoot? Can you Kahoot? Kahoot? It's about arrays. I don't think we ever did this one.
Hang on. Google Chrome, whatever, decide to
See if anybody can get in there. Okay, let's see if anybody can take on Edward. He's ready. Like quite a group. That guy's here. Pretty close. Okay, how are you doing? Any else? Anybody else? I'm gonna start it then. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Hey, somebody's taking my identity. Oh, crap. Oi. Okay, somebody's got a phone. I'm gonna have to get on mine. Okay, I'm starting it. We're getting people that don't live here. Okay, which one allocates an array? It's gonna be hard to see. It's gonna be hard to see. Hard to see that code, Steph. Oh, but you guys have that thing. That first one sort of would count too, huh? It just, yeah. That one really should count. You guys are not, you are not wrong. Which adds an entry to an array?
I do.
No, very good. Which accesses an item from an array? Just to see code, but it's not that hard. Good job. I don't know where our other two people went. Using two arrays in sync is called it is also multiple arrays, but that's not what it's called. Which returns a copy of an array? Oh, very good. Which header correctly returns an array?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Oh, wait, I know. That was great. Oh, good. It got the mostest. That's good.
Almost tricky.
Try to. Which header correctly expects an array as a parameter? They all expect it. They're just not quite doing it right. Oh, shoot. Ah, still got the max. Three players just dropped their answer streak. Which returns an array from a method? Oh, so tricky. Which one is it?
Were you two?
Oh, Phil. There were some people. Yay. Good job, people. Okay, I'm going to shut this down because you are Kahoot's awesome. He knows the way. It's that one song, I want to be with you. Be with you. I love that it says it that way in the song. so loud in here.
Bingo.
I'm not sure. There you go. Make it go off the screen.
What's he doing?
The only reason I can't see no phone.
Oh my God. Now you're gonna have to make it all do stuff. Get out of here, you guys. Have a great day. I will see you Wednesday. Yes, sir?
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Oh, good. Oh, I bet you can. You have everything on there. It looks so good.
I'm done.
Okay.
See this one.
It's here or unless you would rather have it displayed as text.
I got like kind of doing these two, except one of my things is not rounding to decimal places. Yeah, my.
No, I think you actually simplify really good because look, each piece is really you got everything all right. Okay, that would look good. Or you could just include a order class that have each of those different classes.
Right, but my colleague just want has to do
That would work. I think it would be best if you made separate classes. If you feel like it's going to cost you too much time, you could have a class that just has an array and different items that should be great to check. But I think that it's going to be easier in the long run to do it with this class, because then you would have that one-on-one relationship. Because then you've got everything But it is a little bit more complicated for setup because you have to have a more structure. That is good. In there, that would make sense. Because that's kind of like your logical order, where it's communicating with all of your other classes to get all that pieces back together. Yeah, I think that's right. So keep working on it. I want to see what's done. Pretty.
Just,
I've never seen that one before. That looks nice.
yeah, I made a custom floral page for my
I
notes.
thought that was interesting.
So if you type in a subpage that doesn't exist, it takes you back.
Very good. So why did we break that? So should we be doing load class data? It's the problem that I'm doing. No, I'm doing it right now. I don't understand why it's running this load form data method in our update. Something weird's going on, and I'm not seeing why it's being such a jerk.
Yeah.
It was working.